And welcome to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Emilio Donnell, and we have two very special guests, Fulham legends Gordon Davies and Rob Wilson. This is a special episode. It is an evening with these two Fulham legends. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. We're going to start off by talking about the Fulham season so far through their eyes, and Emilio and I will share our views as well. The second part of the show is going to be really a deep dive into the midfield with Rob, and for the strikers up front, it'll be a deep dive with Gordon. We're going to get their thoughts on how we can get, in their opinion, moving forward for us to be scoring more goals. We're going to concentrate in the midfield and, of course, up front. The third part of the show is going to be a Q&A, and we're going to have Janos Janaeus join us for the end of the show, and he's going to be answering or actually asking your questions that you leave for us for Gordon and Rob, and he'll share his own. But before we do anything else, I want to welcome everyone to the show first. Gordon, how you doing? Welcome back to the show. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's nice to be back, and it's nice to see some, shall we say, well, although they're not smiling at the moment, the other two guys, Emilio and Rob, the position that we're in, that we find ourselves, people should start smiling now, from now until the end of the season, in my view.
I agree there, Gordon. I agree. Rob, thank you for joining us once again. You were with us recently for the mental health episode, which again, I've got a lot of positive response. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no problem. It's good to be back. Nice to see Gordon face to face. And yeah, it's on the back of a fantastic 7 days last week. Who'd have thought we'd have done what we've done? 3 clean sheets, 7 out of 9, some good polished performances, and the results are going our way. And we go into this weekend with a lot more optimism than we did probably 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Absolutely. And I look forward to talking to both of you. Emilio, you looking forward to doing the show tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, when was it? Before the season started, didn't we? We had that prediction show. Obviously, it's been, 5 months that all 4 of us have been on together?
Yep.
We're all mainly half glass full people, but, Gordon, I know in particular, obviously you're more bullish than I am, but overall, we have got a lot to look forward to over the next hour and for the rest of the season, to be honest. I think, we've given ourselves the best chance to survive this year. I think 4 weeks ago it was looking a little bit iffy. We had some tough games, but I think we've turned the corner. Decisions are starting to go our way. I think we're getting a bit of luck, and we're getting some good results. So we just have to continue that momentum. There's enough games there to get the points that we need. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reconvening with the two legends on the show tonight.
It should be great. I can't wait to get going on it. And I just want to mention, if you're watching live and you want to ask our Fulham legends a question, please put it in the comment section. We might be able to get to it. Like I said, we are going to end the show with questions from the Fulham supporters and also from Giannis. So just want to mention that. But let's get going into this. And Gordon, I'm going to start with you. And again, we're going back, and I just want you to revisit what you were thinking about before the season began. So again, what were your expectations? Let's revisit that, and then we'll talk about the season so far.
Well, as Emilio said, although I'm a bit more positive than the majority of Fulham supporters when we get promoted, I did say that I thought that we could finish around about the 14th mark.
I remember.
And at this moment in time, I think 14th is probably only 6, 7, 8 points in front of us. And there's still a chance, but a good season when you look at the squad that we had, and obviously the late signings of people, which happened again, then 4th off bottom would have been a good result for us to stay up and consolidate yourself and work from there. So I think we're in the position where we can get out of the bottom 3, and not just by 1, but perhaps by 2 or 3 places.
See, this is why I wanted Gordon back, because he gives me this positivity. I'm now feeling even better now. Thank you, Gordon. Rob, over to you again. Let's revisit where you were before the season began.
Yeah, Emilio might have the exact facts of what we all predicted on come that night of the show. I can't remember, but I think I would have been similar to Gordon. That I'm always my aspirations for Fulham are always higher than probably most of our supporters. But like Gordon says, I mean, after the horrific start that we had, and to turn it around to sit where we are now, we've given ourselves a grand opportunity of really, clawing them 2 or 3 teams above us, not just the Newcastle and the Burnley and Brightons. We've got to keep the form going, which we've endured. Yeah, 2 weeks ago we were probably identifying that we had too many draws, and then all of a sudden that draw in between the two defeats gives us, them draws look good, and we've gone 6 unbeaten away from home. And I think, the signs are there that we've given ourselves a real good opportunity. We can't get too ahead of ourselves, because one defeat could knock the confidence, and all of a sudden you're on the back foot again. It's going to be game by game, week by week, but we were in fantastic form since the last 10 or 11 games. So I think we really can continue that right through to the end of the season. Even against the bigger teams, I think we will give them a game. Whereas if they'd have caught us early on in the season, we probably would have got a rolling over like we did the first 4 or 5 games.
Well, what's interesting, Rob, and I'm glad that you said that, because I watched an interview with Roy Hodgson after the Crystal Palace match. And I told you this, Emilio, an interesting tidbit, because he talked a lot about Fulham after the match. And one of the things he said is that Fulham can beat anyone right now except for Man City. Now, that's high praise coming from Roy, and he had nothing but praise for Fulham. And I think that just tells you, and your eyes should tell you, we can play with everyone, and except for, like I said, Man City, Rob.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, we proved that against the Liverpool this season at home, and Man United. We've given them a good game, and we should have come out in the better of both of them in some capacity. But yeah, I think Man City are streets ahead of everyone. Yeah. And as long as we can contain them and don't get a good turning over, which I don't think we are, judging by the way we've been defending the last 10 or 12 games. I don't think anyone's going to roll us over between now and the end of the season.
I totally agree with that. Okay, over to you, Emilio. Let's revisit you and what you were thinking. I remember vividly, but just share it with our audience. Your thoughts before the season began.
Again, they're good.
Thank you for that, Gordon. Thank you for that.
People who know me, come on, I'm a pretty optimistic, half glass full person, but at the same time, grounded and realistic. And I remember at the time, I think for me it was finishing 17th. I predicted finishing 17th, and 2 reasons for that. A, defence. We've talked to death about that, but and I remember I got a lot of abuse for saying we're not going to score enough goals this season. I said it before the season started.
Well, that turned out to be true.
Yeah, Mitrovic doesn't score enough goals for me, and there's not enough depth in that squad. For me it was 17th. As long as you finish 17th, like Gordon says, consolidate, do what Aston Villa did last year, and then you build on that and you strengthen. And we've given ourselves a great chance to do that, but it's. I'm not surprised we are where we are. I think that's the bottom line. But it looked a little bit perilous a few weeks ago, like I've said. But we've turned the corner. We are difficult to beat. We're getting some good results. There are winnable games coming up. I know we've had a lot of debate with some of our fans about we needed those 6 wins. Well, we've got 2 of those 6 wins. Minimum another 4, and possibly more, some draws. Maybe that's what we need. If we get those, but the worry is you need a team really to slump, don't you? I think, to be honest, realistically, Newcastle are on a bit of bad form. They're inevitably going to start winning 1 or 2 games. Brighton, that's going to set them back. That last minute defeat against Palace.
That was hard. That has to be hard for them.
It needs a team who's going to sort of drop quite aggressively, and then we can then push on. And maybe like Gordon, instead of finishing 17th, we can finish 15th to 16th. But stay in the division, and we'll invest next year, and we'll press on. We'll have the stadium full, new stadium.
Yep.
30,000 spectators. There's a lot to look forward to, but we've got 10, 11 games now just to close this season off. So I think most fans are optimistic now.
Okay, excellent. All right, Rob, I'm going to go to you. Let's talk about the beginning of the season. I wanted to pretty much lead up to the end of the transfer window, because I think we saw a different Fulham team, obviously, after the window. So it was always going to be difficult because of the quick turnaround. We knew that, but your thoughts on what happened at the beginning of the season, and do we really just focus on the fact that, I hate to put it this way, a lot of these players came in late and it took a while for it all to gel?
Yeah, most definitely. And obviously, going into the championship final in August and then kicking off the season in September, the lads having probably a 2-week turnaround and not a lot of rest. Signings coming in. We were awful them first 4 or 5 games.
Oh, they're horrible.
We duly got our bums spanked, because I don't think we were geared up. I think it was, if Scott would be honest, he probably, made some mistakes, some team selections and the formats and the way we went into this division, like we did probably 2 years ago. But quickly he realised that and turned it round. And, some of the key players who you thought might be able to adapt to the Premiership, i.e. Hector. They were just
number
found,
one that I'm thinking about.
They were found wanting big time. So I mean, the beauty of it, Scott realised, is where we needed to tighten up, and that back four, since we've got them in between the transfer opening and closing, has been fantastic, and they've been very, very consistent. Anderson's been a revelation, as is Tosin. That two partnership there is probably as good as Hangeland and
well,
going back to
that's high praise. That's high praise.
And probably going back to as good as Brownie and Gailey. But they don't look like they concede. They defend well. They're proper good defenders. They can see danger. Yeah, they both have a little bit of a lapse every now and again, but the constant pressure you're under in the Premiership with the strikers of playing on the edge, or like Vardy on the shoulder. Do you gamble? Do you try and play offside and rely on a linesman being up with play, or a VAR decision? So the back four, whether he's changed fullbacks intermittently, they've done very, very well. And I think someone like Tete coming in and showing that aggression, and he's a proper fullback who likes to get forward, but he loves to tackle. And he's adapted well. Young Robinson's he's struggled a bit recently. Obviously, that's why he's probably lost his place. It's going to be difficult for him to play regular, that sort of level, to attain the level you need to. Obviously, Joe as well. As much as he cut it in the Championship, he was found a little bit wanting in the Premiership, and that's why Anton got his place. But no, we've looked solid this last 10 or 12 games, and it's no surprise to me that we went on. We have not conceded as many goals as we did that first quarter of the season.
Okay. Over to you, Gordon. Again, what's interesting, what Rob said, it sounds like he's talking about the evolution, and I want to get your thoughts on Scott Parker in just a bit as well, but him learning what can work and what wasn't working at the beginning of the season. And also, it was really the issue of really finding that back four. It took a while, obviously, because we had players still coming in. So your thoughts at the beginning of the season, do you follow on what Rob just said, or do you have any other thoughts on it?
No, I follow on from what Rob is saying. I slightly disagree that Scott changes things pretty quickly. He may be doing that now, but initially I thought he was a bit too stayed in his ways and didn't want to change. Now, if you start talking about what the supporters were on about even last year and Parker Ball, that worked to a certain extent in the Championship. But if you go back, 14 months to the Man City game in the FA Cup up at the Etihad, I was invited up there by City to watch the game.
Yep.
And we did what we were doing the previous season. We were playing the ball out from the edge of our 6-yard box, from one centre-half to the other. We went down 1-0 within, I think, 6 minutes. We then went down 2-0, trying to play out from the back with a penalty, and I think it was Ream that got sent off. So we're 2 down within 10 minutes. And then you think, well, we've got to slightly change now and just go a bit longer. But literally, for the rest of the 80 minutes, he tried to play out from the back with 10 men against one of the best teams in Europe. And when we did try a long ball, it was just one of the youngsters were playing up front. So I was speaking to two of the players halfway through the Championship year, Bobby Decker-Dover-Reid and Harrison Reid. And they asked me, what did I think of the way that we were playing? And I said, well, to be perfectly honest with you, I said, we don't change. We play plan A from start to finish. I said, when you've got Mitrovic up there, he's got the ability, and we've got the ability at the back to pick him out, then play off him. I said, but if we play off him, we always go square again. And it's been happening this season. We always go square, and we've never got anybody going in behind him. When Dean and myself played with Rob just behind us, Rob was close enough that if there was a flick on and I didn't go for it, or if we split, Rob was coming through the middle. We've never had, if you want to call him an attacking midfield player, I'd probably call him a number 8 these days, I don't know, to vary our style of play. When he got a decent back four in to play at this level, it gave him options. And I think in one of the programs that we did last year, early in the season, I said with Robinson coming in, what you may find is that Joe Bryan and Robinson play both on the left side, and you get an attacking one going forward and one dropping back, because they can both defend to a certain extent and they can both attack. So I think it has been an evolution. I think you've got to give praise to Scott where it's due, and he has changed the formation. He went to 5 at the back and he played with sort of wing backs, and Bobby Decordova-Reid has fitted into that sort of style of play. It's just further forward, as you said, Russ. It's the final third, and Emilio, it's that final third where we've struggled now for a season and a half. And I think that is something that we'll be discussing more of later in the show. But fair play to Scott. He has changed it. He's now got a different style of play, and we are mixing it up. And you only got to look at Lookman's goal from a couple of games ago. One ball from the back, he's in and he scores. So we can do it, but we need to change it up every now and again and not play the same formation or plan from minute 1 to minute 90.
Totally agree there. And we're definitely, that's going to be a huge focus coming up, because the issue is the final third, Gordon. And we'll talk about that in the second part of the show. Emilio, I want your thoughts on what the guy shared here.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of them. Obviously, different perspectives. What Gordon said, I agree with, in the sense that, Scott has been a bit reticent at times to change things. And I think we've been not critical, but I think we've called him out on some of the full-time show straight after the game. Maybe substitutions have been a little bit too slow, or hasn't mixed it up a little bit. I think, look at the Sheffield United game, to Gordon's point. It took a direct, pass from Anderson that changed the game, and Lookman scored a great goal. Had we continued to play Parker ball, maybe we would never have scored the rest of that night. So mixing up is key. And I think that we can be a little bit predictable at times. I know we're difficult to break down. We're not going to get spanked, that Rob said this season, but I'd like to see a bit more variety, a bit more, look at the way Everton gave us the freedom of the pitch, and they maybe gave us too much respect, and we took advantage of that. But for me, that Parker ball principle doesn't work when you've got teams gunning at you. Sheffield United are not pretty, but they've given their dues. It took a great cross and a good goal from Lookman to win the game. Brighton, twice we've struggled. West Brom, we should have beaten them comfortably. We should have closed the game out up before half time. That'll be another 2 points on the board. West Ham, sometimes we just need to be a little bit more brave, make a few tactical changes with our substitutes, more timely changes, and maybe we may get more reward. But Scott Parker, let's be honest, he got us promoted in his first season, and he's learning every day. So, at the end of the day, fans who won him out, then, just take a reality check. He's going to be here for the long haul, whether we get relegated or not. So I think we've got to work with him, give him the tools, and hopefully we will change our style of football. I think we just need a bit more variety, because we can be a bit predictable. Right. And when teams close us down, we struggle to find a way through and break. And when basically the opposing team is literally giving us no space, we lack a bit of quality. Maybe we'll talk about it in a minute when we talk about the midfield.
Yes.
Who's got that quality midfield? Who's got a Rob Wilson in our team at the moment to have that bit of quality? Cut through an opposing defence. We're missing that at the moment at times.
Okay, and we're going to get to that in just a second. Before we do, I'm going to go back over to you, Gordon, because good stuff from all three of you. And I want to talk about the progression since the Leicester City match. We'll include that. And you've already talked about how Fulham have tweaked their formation. In fact, it started, I believe, with the Leicester City match, and then Parker has tweaked it again. Let's talk about that, because I also want to focus on something Emilio said, because this is a very good point. Fulham have played very well against some of the bigger sides that give us the space to play. Let us play. But when we play Brighton and we play Sheffield United, they don't have the space, and it affects how we play. So maybe this goes back to what you were talking about with Parker, maybe needing to tweak his tactics a little bit. But I want to get your thoughts on our progression.
Well, you look at it's always easy to say it's been a season so far of, in a way, two halves. As Rob mentioned, the first 10 games, we weren't at the races. I think we won 2 of the first 10 and got beaten well by Arsenal, by Villa. And even if you think of the Leeds game away, we score 3 goals away from home, which is the first time we've done it in a while, and yet we end up losing 4-3. So the first 10 games, I think things could have been changed after 4 or 5 because we weren't at the races. The next 15, as you say, from the Leicester game, we've won a couple, we've drawn 9, as Rob mentioned earlier. We've tightened up at the back because of those, shall we say, new back 4 that we've got. They've all settled in. They've all settled in well and put other people under pressure to say, you've got to be at this level if you want to get back in the team. But it's been a slow move forward for us. But that slow move forward has given the players confidence because, as Rob mentioned, the last 10 or 12 games, if we've lost to the top teams. But as you say, we draw at home against Liverpool, we beat Leicester away, we beat Everton away. We've shown that we can do it against the bigger teams who may well drop off or perhaps not give us the credit that we can play football. And even the Man United game at home, I would probably say, looking at Pogba's goal, the last thing you want to do with any international player is stand off him when he's 18, 20 yards out. You may as well say to him, go on, have a shot, see if you can score. 9 times out of 10, the keeper might save it or it might go wide. But the one time that it goes in, when you don't close somebody down on the edge of the box, and I look at that goal and I blame Joe Bryan for watching him come across and not stepping 2 yards out. And that's the difference between blocking a shot or making him pass it square rather than saying, get your head up, have a look, pop it in top corner. So the second, not the first 10, the second game, 15, 16 games, we've done remarkably well. And each draw has given the players and the management the confidence to go into the next game. And I think with the 2 wins, as Rob said, the 2 wins, the last 3 games, it's given the players and the squad so much confidence that now we can get out of this position. They're on a bit of a roll, and everybody's looking at Fulham now, that those 5 or 6 teams above us, they are looking at us because we are the ones that are putting a run together, albeit 1 draw, 3 or 4, 1 win, 3 or 4 draws. Yeah. But we are the team that is on form at the moment. And I think it's putting pressure on the teams above us. And when you put that little bit of pressure on them, then they start making mistakes as well. So I think we're in a good position, especially after the start that we had to the season, which was diabolical.
I totally agree. Over to you, Rob. Your thoughts on what Gordon said, and share your thoughts about where we have, I guess, progressed since Leicester City.
Yeah, I mean, it's there for all to see. The progression's been fantastic since the Leicester game, and like Gordon says, I think the confidence the lads have built on by going on these good performances and picking up the draws here and there, where some of the games we should have won. Some of the games, were that close that them extra 2 points, as we say, should have been on the board. West Brom should have been out of sight. That was the most frustrating game I've ever watched. So the lads have seem to have. I see the style of play, the quickness between the thirds when we get behind the midfield of some of these teams where we can get past them. Our game seems to change game by game. We look a little bit, personnel look a bit sharper. Loftus-Cheek's been a revelation. I think the last 5 or 6 games he's grown in stature in terms of fitness, and he's more demanding of the ball, and he's more impetus in the game. So that's been pleasing on the eye, because I, like many others, were probably critical of him that he hadn't. We probably jumped down his throat too early, but he has got better and better each game, and he's going to be a key player between now and the end of the season. He still needs to add goals and assists to his game, because I think they're lacking. If he's going to be our number 10, then for him to stay in the side, he has got to add goals and assists to his game, because other than 1 goal and no assists from the games, even though he's growing after a serious injury, he should be doing what Maddison's doing and Grealish are doing.
I agree.
Adding goals and assists when you play in that high profile position. But the confidence is there. I know from the squad and and the staff, and we are the form team. We're momentum. So like Gordon says, the teams above us will be definitely looking over their shoulder and thinking Fulham are picking up points and points. And you could see it in Newcastle. They looked nervous the other night when they played. Even Bruce looked nervous.
Looked very nervous.
Brighton were unlucky the other night, obviously against Palace. And,
Rob, do you think they're starting to feel it a little bit?
Yeah, I think they will. I think Newcastle have felt it for games. And honestly, I've seen them a couple of times live on telly, and I really can't see them getting out of it. So as long as we keep continuing our form and picking up results here and there, I'm quite confident we can definitely clear them and probably one or possibly two more above that. Because Burnley have always got a few games in them to win, but then they can go 3 or 4 games without winning, you know. So them and Brighton are a bit yo-yo-ish, you know.
Yeah, good stuff. Over to you, Emilio. I want your thoughts on what the guys just shared, and feel free to share your thoughts, and then we'll move on.
I think rather than repeating what the guys have said, which I could agree with, look at all the other positives. How many clean sheets have we kept this season as well?
That's a great point.
How many? It's unheard of in the Premier League. Even in the this reminds me when some of the early seasons that we were keeping. Roy Hodgson 0-0 away results, grind out a good tough away results. That's what we're difficult to beat. How many 0-0s have we had this season? Clean sheets, quite a few. So that's testament to the way that back four in particular, have gelled together and a good reading and understanding with each other. I think I agree with Loftus-Cheek. We've said it quite a few times on recent shows that he has grown in stature. He's more commanding. He just needs a goal.
He does. Rob's 100% right.
He's getting closer and closer. It's the Brighton moment at the end. I thought, damn it, a bit more confident, a little bit more composed. That could have been in the back of the net. We were snatched an undeserved victory, but it was that close. Similarly, he's getting.
I just think one other point. I think we're probably overlooking here. We keep saying a back four, but thinking about it, it should be a back five because that goalkeeper.
We haven't even mentioned him.
That goalkeeper has kept us in many a game.
Areola, I can't believe it. We haven't mentioned him.
Yeah, and we've had less. If you think about it, there's less man of the match performances from Areola recently because it's a defender in front of him and protecting him. So 10, 12 games ago, Areola kept us in the game and. He made some outstanding saves, but he's made a few mistakes recently. But again, he's an outstanding keeper. I think he's the best we've had probably since Van der Sar. To be honest, we look back over. We've been blessed with good goalkeepers over the years, haven't we? We have. Schwartz was a bargain signing. We've got Areola now, but we need to keep these players. We need to stay in this division, and then we can buy these players outright, and then we can push on like Aston Villa have done this season. But there's a lot to look forward to. But it's where I get frustrated is. The Liverpool game, we could have been 2 or 3 up in that game and just lacking a bit of quality in front of goal. West Ham, it's the same themes here. It's just like something Parker maybe just changed it a little bit. Maybe we could have. I don't buy the issue that we haven't got enough quality up front as the only reason. Sometimes we have to be a little bit more brave.
I agree.
I think you're right, Emilio. But I think at the end of the day, it's the players who've got themselves in really good positions that are missing these chances. That are key decisions. As much as Lookman's been really good and he's a game changer, he is missing, or he's missing chances, enough. Or he misses. He looks a bit lackadaisical sometimes. He's great on the eye and he's been a match winner for us. But I've been frustrated with him a few times where. He's either been too greedy or he's took one touch too many or he's, if he had that little bit more extra quality, we'd be sitting on another 6 points.
Yeah. And I've called him out post-Christmas. And I think we're going to talk about this in a moment because I think COVID, Lookman, I think was one of the players who had COVID. So how much has COVID affected some of these players? Anguissa is not the player he was pre-Christmas. There's a reason for that. I don't think it's because he's off form. He's coming back from COVID is not easy. I've not had to suffer, so I don't know what the impacts are. You hear all these reports, you hear all these people talking about COVID. It's going to take months to recover, and that's why you're not seeing these players as sharp as they would have been 2-3 months ago pre-COVID.
Well, listen, that's a good point. It's a very good point. And guys, I want to ask you that because again, it's funny. We're just talking about it here where I live, basically criticizing some of the players here in Boston who are bringing up their struggles with COVID-19. I think it's real. And I think, and again, I think Fulham have been affected by it. So you guys have played the game, and again, we're still learning about the effects that COVID have on everyone. Gordon, shouldn't we be factoring in what COVID has affected some of our players?
I think we should do, to be perfectly honest with you. But I think a lot of people, because they are elite athletes and they're out there training, I don't know, they could be training 5, 6 days a week these days. Then I think that everybody thinks they are 100% every time they go out on the pitch.
Yeah.
And it's obviously not the case because, as two of you have already said, it's a situation if they have gone down with COVID, we don't know what it's done to, shall we say, the lungs. And that is
Exactly.
one big tank that you need going at 100% if you're running up and down that pitch, sort of
Right.
3 times a week these days. So sort of Saturday, Tuesday, or Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. So I think it's got to come into the equation. And obviously, we don't know who's really suffered with it or what symptoms they've got. But it's going to be a situation when you look at the squad of players that we've got and probably the amount of games that the majority of them are playing, then I've always said up until this conversation that we're having now, that if you play Saturday and Tuesday, then you can have Sunday off, come in, it's a warm down on a Monday, play Tuesday, but have Wednesday, Thursday off, come back in Friday. But I think the regime these days is that you're literally in the day after a game, and then you're training 2 days before the next game, and then you're training 2 days, 3 days before the next game. It's bound to take its effect unless you've got that rotational system in place and you've got a big enough squad with the quality at this level to interchange players. And I don't think we've got enough quality in a lot of positions to change it. And you just look at the performances of some of the players when they've come in for the cup games.
Yeah,
I've said before that that's their chance to really shine and put pressure on the manager for the next game. And the QPR game, hardly anybody shone in that game. And then we get knocked out in the next round because we had literally 10 players or 11 players that didn't turn up for the game. So it could well be COVID, but we will never know probably until the end of the season when perhaps some of the truths come out. And I know we'll be speaking about forwards later on.
Yes.
But you just got to look at what Mitrovic has done this year. And he's not been the same player from start, even having a rest, to the position that we find ourselves now. But that's coming up later.
Okay, very good. All right. Rob, quickly, your thoughts on this, and then we'll move on to part 2.
Yeah, as I say, I mean, we're all speculating as to what players. I mean, we can all identify who might, if they're going through a bad vein of form, then you'll automatically say, well, he must have been one of the 3 or 4 that had COVID, and you pick out the likes of Anguissa and Lookman, and who are 2 that are probably the regular first teamers of form has been dipping since Christmas or since the alleged COVID incidents, if they were 2 of the 3 or 4 that did have it. But as I say, I think, as Gordon says, they are elite athletes, and to what strain they've had, whether it's mild or if it has been affected their body, that it can take weeks and weeks and weeks. And the way Anguissa has played recently, you think it must have affected him. Lookman seems to have perked up a bit the last 4 or 5 games, but to where Frank was, being number 1 in the Premiership for every stat going up until Christmas. Yeah, he's dipped down. He slowly showed a little bit the other night, but he was up there with the best of the best.
Exactly, that's my point, Rob. These players don't become bad overnight, as we always say, and that's why I don't think we're factoring enough into this, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I think it's a factor. And again, we think we know who they are, and we're talking about them. But again, I think we just need to bring that up because I think it's a factor in what's going on with Fulham, and it's something that they're still, I believe, overcoming. Okay, coming up next, we're going to talk about the midfield and the strikers and analyze them with Rob and Gordon, and we're going to finish up with some of your questions. Okay, guys. This is the part of the show where I'm just fascinated by your thoughts, because I'm going to put both of you in the shoes of Scott Parker and what you would do if you were the manager. So, Rob, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk about the central midfield. I want to focus on them. And because, again, we're talking about the defense being solid, but Fulham need more goals. Let's just say it. They need more goals. And it's not just the strikers up front, the struggles that they're having. It also is involving the midfield. So you're Scott Parker. How do you manage your central midfield? Because there are a lot of moving parts. We'll talk about Tom Cairney in a second, because he's probably going to be back at some point. But if you're him, what would you be doing with your central midfield?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he has rotated the midfield. I mean, probably not as much recently as he did probably the first 6 games of this run, where he had probably more access to players. But I mean, looking at someone like Harrison Reed and Lamina, it's one or the other for me. It's not both. In some games, he's played them both together, but it's one or the other. If Frank is back to the form pre-Christmas, then he has got to fit in there somewhere because he's a game changer. Loftus has come to the show now the last 5 or 6 games. So again, it's just identifying where Loftus fits in, because people say he's a number 10, is he a number 8? He seems to do a lot of his good work on the right-hand side. It's always down the right-hand side.
I noticed that too.
Of our box. And as I touched on earlier, if he's going to become our number 10, he needs to weigh in with more goals and more assists, which he's not done this season. Gradually got better game by game, and rightly so, won a few man of the matches. But I just think he needs to add that to his game. The likes of Bobby Reid, if he's going to play, I think the best way we play is probably a flat back 4, Harrison Reid sitting in front. I'd play 4-1-2, 2-3. You know what I mean? Depending, it could be Lookman, Maja, or Mitro, Bobby or Cavallero on the right. But I've got a tendency that because Loftus does a lot of his work on the right hand side, I think he could play right of a free or a little bit of a free roaming role as well. But Harrison Reid definitely starts for me. I like him better than Lamina as a holding midfield player. I'd give Frank the benefit of the doubt that he should be back to full fitness and give him that license to play alongside Harrison or just in front of him. But I think Scott is going to be changing it game by game, depending who we're playing.
See, that's what I was going to ask you. Is this more opponent-based because he has so many different moving parts?
Yeah, it will be. I mean, I think he'll probably have a vision in his mind who we're playing against. Man City, he'll probably be he might play Lamina and Reid to think, right, well, we know we're not going to get nothing, but we don't want to get a 4 or 5-0 spanking. So I'll put 2 holding central midfield players there, and we'll play a little bit more cautious. Which is fine, it's negative, but it's fine in my eyes that we don't go into that game if we've had a couple of good results before that we suddenly get a spanking and it dents the confidence for the last 7 or 8. So he might play them 2 there. But, when Cairney comes back, which we'll talk about later, give him options as well. But yeah, we do need more goals and Gordon mentioned it earlier. We do not get enough bodies forward into the box.
He's right.
When we're at full speed or even slow speed, we just don't get people beyond the centre forward, whether it be Maja or Mitro. No one goes running beyond from deep line midfield players.
Okay, so that's going to lead me to talk about Cairney and Ruben Loftus-Cheek. You've been on the show before. You said they can play together. I think you have a vision of how this could work. So let's talk about when Cairney is able to come back. It sounds like he could be potentially coming back, hopefully soon. So how would this work, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, they did have 1 or 2 games before Tom's form got him dropped out before his injury. And at that stage, Loftus probably wasn't the player he is now. I personally think they both can play because they're both good footballers. They both like receiving the ball under pressure. I think in the Premiership, you need people that ball retention is key and part of the game. As much as we like to mix it up, we still need to keep the ball. I think Tom's probably watched how we've played the last 10 games while he's been sitting injured, unfortunately, and seeing how the speed that we do play at. And I think hopefully when he comes back, he'll identify, and Scott will reiterate to him, we want to keep that sort of genuine pace going when we're trying to break the thirds down. But yeah, I would definitely see Tom fitting into the side, whether it be with Harrison and Anguissa as the 3 so-called midfield players. And as I mentioned early on, I think Loftus can definitely play on the right of 3. Okay. Don't have to stay up there or start there. He could have a bit of a free role, but he seems to do all his natural good stuff from the right side coming in.
Okay.
I was going to say, Rob, how much have we missed him? We've talked about how...
Just take the words out of my mouth.
How well we played, how competitive we are. How have we missed Tom? Or have we missed that bit of quality to unlock a defence and maybe create more opportunities for our forwards? I don't know. What do you think? Do you think we've...
I think we've definitely missed his presence on the ball. I mean, some supporters would disagree with me that we haven't missed him because in their eyes, he doesn't do enough off the ball. But I think before his injury and before some of them games, he was actually performing probably higher than he had done for many, many months. And I think the knee injuries come along. Obviously, it was from early on in the season, but I think it just became too much of a problem for him. But I think he was starting to show that tenacity off the ball, which people have said that he's been guilty of. I thought he was showing a little bit of that, or a lot of that, to be fair, in some of the games before he actually, the medical decided that his knee injury was a little bit more serious than they all thought. But I definitely think he can come back. I think if he comes back in 2 or 3 weeks, it'd be like a new signing, because he's going to be fresh, he'll be fit. I think he'll give us the impetus and the quality to finally get us over the line and get us enough points that we'll need.
I've heard some people say that. That's why I wanted to bring up that Cairney could actually be a difference going towards the end of the season. And Rob, I think you make a strong argument for that. But again, before we move on and go over to Gordon and talk about the strikers, I want to ask you this question. Okay, so Rob, when Cairney returns to the starting 11, who's your captain? Because I think it's going to be difficult to take it away from Anderson, because again, he's building something special there. And would it be a big difference if then you had to give it back to Cairney with chemistry? I'm curious your view on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Anderson's done very well in being a leader and a defender, and he seems to be a little bit more vocal than probably Tom demonstrates from the sideline. Me personally, I would probably keep Anderson as captain, as on the pitch captain. I would keep Tom definitely as club captain. It takes the weight off his shoulders coming back into that final.
I totally agree with that. One less thing.
He's got no pressure on him as an individual. He can just concentrate on his own game.
Exactly.
And, come back and just play and just leave everything as it is behind him, and he can do the constructive bits that he needs to do going forward, and it takes the pressure off his shoulders that he hasn't got that alongside him. Not that as a captain of a Premiership side, there carries pressure. It carries pressure, whether it be on the pitch, media, off the pitch, So, let's take that away from him for the last 6 or 8 games whenever he comes back, and let him just flourish with the natural talent he's got.
Okay. Gordon, I want to get your view on that as a player. Would you leave it with Anderson? And Rob brings up a good point, because it might also free up Cairney not to have to worry about that right now and just be able to just play his game.
Yeah, totally agree with Rob on that. I'd keep Anderson as captain, because he is more vocal. Every game that you watch on the box, if anything is going on, people are talking on the pitch, they focus in on Anderson with the cameras, and he's talking to people. You can see him sort of pointing out or doing things with his hands to explain to people what he wants them to do. So I would leave that as it is. And if Tom comes back in, I think, to be perfectly honest with you, if, as Rob said, you've got Anguissa and Reid in the middle of the park, I think Tom could fit into that number 10 position, because if you look from the Everton game, where everybody had a great game, the only person that was really hitting the target from outside the box is little old Harrison Reid. And the second goal came from his shot. Yeah. Now, he's getting more shots in from a midfield point of view than anybody else on that pitch. Mm-hmm. So the person who scores goals from that position is Tom Cairney. And he just bends them into top left or top right-hand corner from 20 yards without any effort at all. And it's goals like that. And yes, the phrase is goals change games. Yep. But if Tom Cairney gets 2 or 3 shots and he scores 1 early on in the game, and I've had a go at him in the past that he scored a goal in the 85th minute, and it's his first shot at goal. Yeah. If you put him in that number 10 position, you could find that he's getting 4, 5, 6, 7 shots a game. And then that gives you the option of the wide men, as Rob was mentioning. Loftus-Cheek, to me, is not a number 10. He's better coming in from wide. And then you can use Lookman or Decordova-Reid on the opposite side, because I feel as though Cavaliero is doing a knockout at the moment, and he's not producing wide. He's not getting crosses in. His quality hasn't been the best, and I think he's been lucky, in my opinion, to be starting games. Now, whether that's through injuries or what, I don't know, but I think that Loftus-Cheek can do well, and put it this way, if he's coming in from the right and the ball is being crossed from the left, you've got a 6'2", 6'3" person coming in on the far post. So if Mitrovic isn't up the middle, then you've got somebody to worry about on the far post. But I think the one thing that I would say is, yes, I'll agree with Rob with everything he says about the defenders and the midfield players. If you're going up front, the only thing that we haven't had up front is a natural goal scorer. And I think that's really, if Mitrovic is off form, and you look at last season, if he wasn't producing the goods, we may have won a lot of games just by the odd goal. And you can't do that. You can't do that in the Premier League and just put on a show of going forward and just creating 3 chances in a game. You're not going to get away with that. And the problem is we haven't had an ideal replacement for him. And if you use that phrase, a natural goal scorer, we haven't had one until Maja has come on board.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second. I'm going to transition and we're going to talk about the striker position. Before we do that, I'm actually going to bring on another co-host who will be finishing up the show when we get to the Q&A section. But I want to bring him on right now. Giannis, welcome to the show. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're still talking about the striker position, and I'll be going with Gordon about that. But you're going to be finishing up and asking questions to the guys. But welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. We've got the legends in Ivor, Robbo, and Teddy in the house. This is all good. And I've been listening to the conversation. It's been great stuff. Some great stuff here, and what has been a really intriguing season to be a Fulham fan for sure. Lots of talking points.
Okay, good stuff. All right, Giannis, I'll be with you in just a few, but I definitely want to just now focus on the striker position with Gordon. So, Gordon, I'm going to put you now in the shoes of Scott Parker. How do you manage the strikers? You just mentioned Maja, and I'm curious your view on him. And also, we have to talk about what's going on with Mitro, and how do we get him firing on all cylinders? Is it a mental issue with him I'm talking about, because he's had a really tough season, then of course now he's dealing with COVID. There's a lot going on here. How do we get him back to the player that we've seen before? Can they play together? There's a lot to talk about with the strikers. I'm curious your view on, if you're Scott Parker, how do you manage them?
I think you manage the players around them. Both of them are, if I say, use the phrase, goal scoring machines. And they're both natural goal scorers, but Mitro has been living off scraps for 18 months. He's been getting 1, 2, maybe 3 chances in a game that he's the only striker in there, and he's jumping with 2 centre-halves. And if it's not perfect, then he just gets a soft header and it bounces into the arms of the keeper, or he's trying to put too much power in, it's going over the bar. So to get Mitro back on song, if he is fully fit, you've got to play him, and you've got to work on the wide men and the fullbacks and people in and around him, getting service into him that he can feed off. And same with Maja. He scores 2 goals. He has 2 chances in his first game. Well, 2.5 chances in his first game. He puts 2 away. The game after that, he didn't get a chance. He didn't get a shot at goal. Oh, sorry, Burnley was. He had 1 shot on the turn, I think, from 16 yards. And then the Sheffield United game, he didn't have 1 chance in the game. Because, as I mentioned earlier, when we get in that final third, I think once the wide players start moving in and we haven't got somebody going around overlapping, then the chances break down. And when it goes from the wide midfield player to the left back, for instance, and they knock it in so he controls it and goes square. Hardly ever do we knock a soft ball into the person in that left back or right back position to knock in first time. And when you know what's happening with players, you can, as a forward, you can start making a move. You can be disinterested. And then as you know that ball has been laid back, it's been laid back to come in first time, you're disinterested, and then you move and go for it. And without that knowledge of when that ball is coming in, you can either do one of 2 things. You can either make a move every time you think the ball's going to come in, and it doesn't. And then when you're sitting on your heels and you're not expecting it to come in, one's whipped in and people are having a go at you saying, well, why weren't you on the end of it. And you can, like, I'll bring Rob in on this because from Rob's point of view, Rob was one of the best timers of runs into the box. If Dean Coney and myself split, Rob would make the run in between us because he knew that the ball was coming in. But if he doesn't know when the ball's coming in the end, he stops running in there. And then when that ball does come in, I'm turning around and saying, where the bloody hell are you? And it's not come in for an hour, and then suddenly a ball comes in. So I think you've got to work on the people and the service into the front lads, whether you play 1 or 2, or you've got people coming in from wide. They should know or have some idea when that ball is coming into the 6-yard box, 18-yard area, because you can work off that. But when you don't know when it's coming in, there's no hope for Mitro, there's no hope for Maja. I would be pulling my hair out if I played in this team, and I would be having a go at the wide players or whoever's on the ball to get that ball in the box. Because, as I mentioned earlier, if you're only creating 3 chances a game, and we have in some games, and it's fallen to Cavaliero, Lookman, Decadova-Reid, because they're not, and Loftus-Cheek is another one, because they're not natural strikers, they've always tended to snatch at it, and they put it over from 8 yards. They've not hit the target. And as I'd say to anybody, hit the target, make the keeper make a save. If he makes a save, fine. But they're always trying to whip it in because they're coming in onto a ball that's been knocked across from the dead ball line and pulled back. And you've got to get a perfect sort of contact on it to keep it down with power, because it's the one chance that you've had in the first 70 minutes of a game. So you snatch at it and then you think, right, when's the next one going to come in? So I would work, if I was Scott, I would work on the players getting the right kind of service into the box so the forwards or the midfield players can attack that ball. We are attacking balls from a standing jump because we don't know when it's coming in. And if you're attacking it from a standing jump, unless you're 6'4", you're not going to get it on the end of anything. But a 6'4" centre half marking me, if I can get half a yard in front of him, I'll have a chance of getting that ball and put it in the back of the net. But put it up there, I've got no chance. So that's one thing that I would certainly work on, is the wide players and the service into the box. Because and also from a midfield player's point of view, there's only Harrison Reed shooting. Anguissa's had 1 or 2.
I was going to say,
somebody on Facebook mentioned that he's the only player that looks like a Rolls Royce when he's got the ball, or when he's shooting, and he looks like Derek Trotter's van. So he's going to work on getting that shot on target, because he can strike a ball. But we've only got Harrison Reed shooting from 20 yards, and all the other players, it's as if they're saying, I'd rather pass it wide, give the problem to somebody else. If you're a forward, you want that problem in front of you to score goals. That's what you paid for. Yes, do a bit of defending as well, but that's what you paid for, to win games. And I think those are certainly some things that I would work on with regards to the front lads.
Okay. Rob, what's your view on this? Because Gordon kind of brought you into this, talking about the midfield. What are your thoughts on what he shared?
Yeah, I think he's right in saying Mitro. I mean, obviously Maja's come in, and you look at his 2 runs for the Everton goals. Well, you know, I don't think they're the type of runs that Mitro does. You know, Maja looked like he made that that half a yard run to go to the front, then dropped off. Yeah, there were 2-yard tap-ins, but I said to my wife at that night, I said, Mitro wouldn't have scored them goals because he wouldn't have made them runs, them 2 fortunate runs. I mean, the first one was a good run. All these goals have been, like you say, hard goals that he's had to either generate himself because of the lack of quality, as Gordon says, from the wide areas. I think Joe Bryan is only a natural left-footed player that would put crosses in with regularity. I think Tete is starting to do that on the right-hand side.
Right.
He's one. I mean, look at, I don't know if you remember the Oliver Norwood ball he whipped in the other day. He
Fantastic.
And it ended up being a diving.
Emilio talked about the fear of
But that was you know, he never looked. Oliver knew what he was doing. He just came back to him and he whipped it. If that had been us, we'd have had another touch, played it square again. But he just whipped it in Beckhamish.
Great point.
You know, and it in between the keeper and the defenders, and it was nearly a goal scoring opportunity. We don't do that type of cross. You know, we would have had another touch.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
Emilio, you brought that up. That's a
yeah,
great
we've said
point.
it time and time again, haven't we? I think the problem as well is we do a lot of the hard work in centre midfield, but it's that final ball, that bit of quality where it counts. We're trying to do this, trying to pass it, 100 touches to get it into the penalty area. Be more direct. Look at Aina. He was, he got down the byline. He drilled the ball into the 6-yard box. Thank you very much, Madge. He polished up. How often have we done that this season?
Not often enough.
All the few games he's played this season.
Yeah.
Tete, inconsistent. Robinson's crossing is abysmal, let's be frank. And our corners, I know some of the fans are commenting, even our corners are not good enough. We haven't got an Oliver Norwood type of person who could just get balls
Great point.
in the right area. So we then feed on to Mitrovic, like Gordon is saying, or we pick up loose scraps. But our crossing is just abysmal. That final ball, even Lookman does the hard work, get into the penalty area and square the ball in the 6-yard box. Don't try to walk the ball into the 6-yard box. If Lookman just be we'd see a stronger version of Lookman. That's what we're missing at the moment. So what the guys are saying, I totally concur, but it's just that final ball, not good enough. Or we try to walk it, do like Arsene Wenger's team were doing many years ago,
right?
Trying to walk the ball into the net. And unfortunately, we're not quite there yet, being an Arsene Wenger type team. But it's that final quality of ball. We've said it time and time again on many of these shows. That's not good enough.
Okay, very good.
Well, as you said, Emilio, it's a situation. The last time we had 2 tap-ins in the 6-yard box was in the Championship when we played Luton away, and Bobby Decordova-Reid got 2 tap-ins in the 6-yard box. Yeah. And I thought, right, he could fit into that number 10 position because he was the only person that we had in the team that was following balls in. And he's not done it since. And until Maja comes on board, we've been looking for somebody to be in those positions for a good 12 months.
Yeah, you're right.
And it plays on people's minds. Sometimes forwards don't mind missing, because I didn't mind missing a chance because I knew there was another one coming. But at the moment, players, I think, are snatching. I'm worried about missing a chance. And I think sometimes that's why they pass it to somebody else. You miss it rather than me. Because I always knew with the team that I played in, if I missed one, they would still put the ball in there and I'd go in again and again and again and I'd score. But if you don't go in there, you're never going to score goals in that sort of 6, 8, 10-yard area.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. One final topic, and then I'm going to go to Giannis for you, Gordon. How do we get Mitro firing?
I think you've just got to play him. As I said when we started that answer, you've just got to play him if he's fit enough to play. You can't suddenly bring him on with 10 minutes to go and expect him to get on the end of a cross. I think you've got to start him, but you've got to keep putting the balls in there. If you have a look at his goal scoring record for Serbia, I think he's only got 2 or 3 to go to become their record goal scorer. But a lot of the goals that he gets are from crosses, and that's crosses probably level with the 18-yard box. But with Fulham, as I've said earlier, he goes in 90 minutes, he might have 1 or 2 half chances. And to be perfectly honest with you, even I would drop my head playing in a team that only gives you some rations to eat rather than having a 5-course meal. And if Mitro plays, you've got to get 10, 15, 18 crosses in.
See, I agree with this. I totally agree with you, Gordon. And that's been a frustrating thing watching Fulham. It's why aren't they playing to his strengths?
Yeah, it does surprise me because, as I say, you've only got to look at where is his strength. He's not going to run in behind defenders. He hasn't got the pace. He can hold it up, but we've always, in and around the box, we've never got enough players close to him so you can 1 touch or 2 or lay it off. Somebody else has a shot and scores. We get down the line, and as Rob alluded to this as well, we go square. We go back. When we've got a chance of knocking it in, we have a look up and we come back out again. And for us to get from one box to the other, it could take us, or even from the halfway line to the edge of the box, it could take us 15 passes. And Mitrovic is waiting there. And when it does get down there and they cut inside, as happened last year many times with Knockout and Cavaliero, because they're playing on the wrong side of the pitch, then the chances evaporate. And when you're expecting to get on the end of things and they're just not coming in, I can't have a go at him for dropping his head, but you can get so frustrated that you start pulling your hair out. And I've not seen him have a go at anybody, but if I'd have been playing, I would have had a go at the white players for not getting it in there, because he's an international striker and he scored 30 odd goals for Serbia. And what has he scored this year? 4 or 5?
5.
I think he scored 5 in the league. And when you look at the amount of goals that we've scored in the league, well, I've got them in front of me. Next one is Lookman on 4. Bobby Decordova-Reid 5, sorry. Lookman 4. Mitrovic, in 10 games, he scored 2 goals. And for your centre forward, when you're halfway through the season, I know he hasn't played that much, but in 10 games to score 2 goals, even at this level, is not a good return. And that's not having a go at him. He just hasn't had the service. And as I said when we started, he hasn't had the service, in my opinion, for 18 months.
Okay, excellent stuff. Great stuff. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, Giannis. All right, it's time for Q&A with Giannis and questions from the Fulham supporters. So if you have a question for Rob or Gordon, please feel free to leave it in the comment section. But Giannis, I'm going to leave it to you to ask Rob and Gordon whatever you'd like to end the show.
Actually, I was going to compliments to both. Ivy, you said something about the quality of the crosses wide, and the Sheffield United game, in the first half, we had a breakaway, nice breakaway. Cavs goes on the right, cuts inside, and just shoots it. And to me, it's all about that decision-making piece. And for the wingers, if you're someone like Mitra, you're right. You're pulling your hair out and you're saying, "What am I doing here? If I'm going to feed off rations and get 1 or 2 chances a game, I'd be going ballistic." The other thing actually was to Robbo, and what I remember of Robbo in that team in the 80s isn't just so much the runs that he made from midfield, but was the angles. Robbo for me was never a straight line late runner. He was a curved. So he made the late runs, and he also often I found he caught back fours a little bit off color there. So I think that's an important thing. It's not just about the central midfielders making the runs, it's the timing of the runs. I think the Robbo was excellent at in those days, because that's often coaches say make the run, but what kind of run are you looking at? You know, you've got to curve, you've got to arc the run, you've got to keep defenders honest so that you're going into space, and if you've got man-to-man marking, you run into all sorts of trouble. So, first question of the day, it's from Nick. A great question. Guys, what about our attacking corners? Why are we so poor at scoring from them?
Well, me or you, Rob? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, I mean, there's not many teams in the Premiership that are probably very, very good at corners. I mean, I haven't looked at the stats to see where we are, languishing down the bottom though. But we've got 6'2", 6'3" centre halves, and I think it's all about the timing and the quality of the. Sometimes we look a bit inept and we don't know what we're doing. You know, it might be 1 arm or 2 arm, and it's all about. I mean, it's split-second runs in the box. I mean, Tosin, to be fair, has got into a couple of good goal-scoring heading positions, and probably should have done better and hit the target and scored. But yeah, now and again, you look at other teams, the way they do corners, I think, and some of them are really, a lot of innovation going into them. But I think we've been found wanting on that. And hopefully if we can score a goal or 2 from a corner in the coming games, we'll be a lot happier.
Yeah, I think you're right, Rob, because I don't think we've scored off a set piece or a corner all season. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think we have. And to me, you mentioned one phrase there, the timing of the run. I honestly think that we are going much too early. We're starting our runs too early, and we're already in the position when the ball gets there, and everybody is now going up from a standing jump. Now you want to time your run as Roger Brown used to. You want to time your run so you're getting there a yard before it comes, or 2 yards before it comes to you. So you're starting to go up in the air off a run. As soon as you stop and you've got a standing jump, a 6'2", 6'3" fella will jump 6'8". But if you're going on a run, he'll jump 7 feet. And that's when you've got a chance to get above the ball and head it down. And I think a lot of them are going too early, and the timing is totally off with our corners. But when you think that we've played 25 games and we may not have even scored a goal from a corner, from a direct header, I think that's poor from my point of view, and it's one thing that the coaching staff should look at, because we are just trying to hit an area in the near post, far post area, and that's all we've been trying all season. One thing I cannot work out, and we've not done it even when we had Breda Hangeland playing. When Rob and myself played, we stuck Tony Gale on the near post, and he would go towards the 6-yard box, along the dead ball line, as it were, or inside that 6-yard area.
Yep.
A short ball was knocked in. The Gailey just helped it off the top of his head. It just flicks on and flicks off. He's not going like that to try and force it back to the back post. And then you've got Dean Coney going for the second ball, Willow going for the second ball, Brownie going for the second ball, me probably going for the third ball after they've headed it off the keeper. But it's something that when you've got 6'2", 6'3" people, then we've had bad options about not clearing a first man. Now we're putting it too high up. So put a 6'2", 6'3" person on that near post, get him to come short, try and hit him, attack the second ball. And the best teams that used to score many, many goals from it were Arsenal, when you had Bold flicking it on and Tony Adams coming in, and nobody could stay with him. And if you've made a proper run, then defenders can't do this to you and start holding on to you if you time in your run properly. If you're standing still, then there's arms everywhere. And because forwards and defenders do it, you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. So, the timing of the run for corners or set pieces, I think, has been diabolical all season. And we need to look at that if we want a chance of scoring goals from set pieces.
And to be fair, Ivor, if you look at our team, it was mentioned at the Sheffield United game on Saturday that we are a big team. We're not a team blessed with small players. We've got some monsters in this lineup that can go up there and
you've got to use them. You've got to use them. It's pointless.
Yeah.
You may as well not send them up if you're going to have everything. Just put it in the mix, and all 20 of us go for it. It's not going to work.
Absolutely. It is weird. Now, Des Lynch has just asked a question it's going to blow your mind. If we could sign just one of our fabulous loan players, who should it be?
Good question.
Well, I'll go first this time, Rob.
Go on,
Give me time to think, because I think you've done it already. If we could sign one of them, I would say you've got to sign Anderson.
I agree.
Purely because of the fact that whoever's around him, he's going to make them better players at the back. And you've got to have a solid defence first. You can't sign Lionel Messi up front on loan and then have him as a player if you're giving 3 or 4 at the back and you're expecting him to score 5 or 6. So Anderson for me.
Rob?
For me, I'd go the opposite. I'd sign Lookman.
Wow.
Really?
I think the kid's got a massive future. I think we've seen an element of it this season. Obviously,
you're just thinking of the sell-on fee.
Yeah, I'm his agent. I think the kid's got a great future. You know, I think he's only young. We forget how young he is and the pressure that of playing regular in this division. You know, obviously he came in Everton when he was even younger, and he's gone away and learnt in a different country and come back. He's gone through the West Ham scenario. If he has been one of the ones that have had COVID, he seems to have come through that. Yeah, he's a game changer. And I think if we're to have any longevity in the Premiership when we survive this season, he will be key to grabbing and helping getting the goals for us to stay in this division and future years gone by.
Fabulous question, Des. Luckily, I think we've got Areola on an £8 million option to buy, so we better get the checkbook out for that one. This one's for you, Robbo. For you, Edward Seven has asked, who is your favourite player to watch on the current side? I think I already know that.
I mean, as I say, it can change game by game, but I mean, for longevity, for the good run that we've had, I would say, you know, Lookman's Lookman's changed more games than he's been poor. But then again, I like Harrison Reed these last 5 or 6 games. He reminds me of my old mucker in Ray Lou, the little ginger pocket dynamo. He loves a tackle. He can pass. He can starting to shoot, as Gordon alluded to earlier. He's had a couple of shots recently. He gives you 10 out of 10 every game. He's a busy player. Players seem to react off him and with him. He's not shy on getting a tackle, and he's not. And his quality is he knows what his limitations are. He gets it, gives it to Cairney or to Loftus or to Frank. Players that are going to be a bit more explosive in terms of developing that final third. So it's a difficult one, but if I were paying money to watch any of our forwards on his day, I think Lookman it can be the number one.
I don't want you to feel left out, Ivor. This is one from Steve Reynolds. I'd love to hear your response.
He's going to love this.
Oh, he's going to love this one. With VAR, how many penalties would you have won?
It certainly would have been enough to get us out of the predicament that we're in at the moment if I was playing in this team. I think it's really frustrating with VAR because I was talking about this maybe 15 years ago, may even be 20 years ago, when there was a discussion at the Cottage with a live audience there. And I said, you've got to bring something like that in because you've got to get the big decisions right. Because it was then a multi-million pound game. It's £1 billion industry now. And my idea was to bring it in to help the referees if there is a dubious decision that you need to look at. The way they are using it now is I think, totally unacceptable for not only the supporters, but for the players and the management, because they've tried to tweak it so that now you can't have your wrist offside. It's now your shirt sleeves. But I put a stupid post on Facebook about Australian rules rugby, where the shirt sleeves are up here, so there's nothing from there down. So, and I said Fulham's new kit for next season, and people thought it was a good idea, because if your shirt sleeve now starts up here like a vest, then you can have your whole arm off, and it's not going to be picked up on. To give somebody offside for this much of their knee or their foot or their nose is offside, then I think is absolutely ridiculous. And from a penalty point of view, yes, I would have got quite a few more penalties, because I know Rob's probably going to smile at this, but I never dived. I always used to make sure that I made contact with defenders. So if it meant me getting injured, then I would put my foot just between the ball and where the defender is, so that I knew that I was going to get kicked. And sometimes after Lockheed scored the penalty and the other team had kicked off, I was still limping because I put my foot in an area where I knew it was going to get hit. I never dived over goalkeepers. I always kicked them in the chest, so that it takes your leading foot away. So if your leading foot isn't there, you've got to go down. So yeah, I would have got quite a few more penalties for the club, but as I mentioned, also I probably would have had 1 or 2 goals knocked off as well.
So Robbo,
only because of a little hand here or there.
So over to Robbo. Robbo, how many times would you have been sent off with VAR? That's Martin Thompson's question.
Well, he would have only played 50 games in a career.
I only got sent off once in my career, and that was against Portsmouth on a Friday night home at the Cottage. Yes. With a late tackle on Mick Kennedy, who was kicking lumps out of me for the first 45 minutes. It was a funny story, because he had a go at me just as before the half time. We were walking down the tunnel, and I said, "Yeah, I'll get my own back second half." Anyway, we kicked off, rolled the ball back to me, and I saw him coming at me. And I thought, well, I just went straight over the top of the ball. And I didn't even wait for the red. I'm walking back down the tunnel, and Bobby Campbell's coming down the tunnel and says to me, "Where are you going, Willow?" I said, "Sorry, Gaffer, I've just been sent off." well, obviously let rip not only then straight after the game. But that was my only sending off. But yeah, unfortunately, I think I would have picked up a lot more yellows and probably a lot more reds in the position that I found myself in many a game.
Very interesting.
Hang on,
like
who's this going? Who's this going for a header?
Oh yeah. I always used to use my arms for leverage. If it got in the way of an odd defender's nose or head, then that was unfortunate.
Oh, good
I think
stuff.
we've got one question left for us, and
Go ahead.
Everybody's talked about this. It's a good one. Nick Townsend. What's your view of Ivan Cavallero? Would you start him on a regular basis? I've got a bad feeling about the responses to this one.
It's a no from me.
Yeah, no, the quality isn't there. When we signed him, I think I put even in the program notes that I do, I said, I'm glad that we've signed him. I said, he's got quality, he's got pace, he can score goals. And to be perfectly honest with you, in the time that he's been here, he hasn't done any of those three on a regular basis.
Totally agree.
To me now, he's a 5-10 minute player at the end that might give you that little spark because he's fresh and everybody else is tired. But same with Rob, I wouldn't start him.
Just to enhance on that, I think he's a championship player at best, and as I say, I think in the current squad he's just a bit part player because I don't think he's got the quality there. He's fortunate, I think, that probably out of the two of them we got rid of, or Knockout was the easier one to get rid of out on loan. I think they both could have gone at any stage, I think, because they were offering nothing at this level to, as Gordon alluded to all night, of quality for our main striker to get any potential goals or chances.
Okay. Giannis, we have one final question. Go for it.
No, and this excites me because if you go back to the Liverpool game, the 1-1 game earlier when we had 2,000 fans, and just the noise that they made at the Cottage was raucous, and it was fantastic. So Nick Hartnell has asked, what do you make of the prospect of 10,000 fans being able to watch the last match versus Newcastle? My understanding, Nick, though, is that the way that Boris has set it up is that we would, because of the available capacity we have at the Cottage, we'd only have a 4,000 or 5,000. Am I correct in that?
Something like that. Yeah, I think it's
like
around.
Yeah, I think so.
But still be good.
It's a percentage.
Yeah, still be. I mean, what do you make of, let's say, 4,000 or 5,000 fans being able to watch us play the Magpies?
How important will that be? If that's going to be a stay up or get relegated match, having those 5,000 people in the stadium. How big advantage would that be for us?
Well, I think
it would be. I think the good side of that, I think, will be it'll be sorted before that game. I think that game will just
see. I like Rob's confidence. I like Rob's confidence.
We won't need to support that game. The only thing we'll need as supporters is just to cheer up, staying up, and the other side of the coin, is, do we allow a percentage of Newcastle fans in?
I was thinking the same thing.
No,
so they won't be allowed.
So they're going to kick off about that when there's something to play on. So I think there's some areas to be discussed on that. Yeah.
I think if there are 4,500 in there, I just think that 500 of those 4,500 Fulham supporters should wear black and white and go in the away end and cheer for Newcastle if they do anything good. But generally, just do it, as Giannis did, just do it on a silent basis. So if they get close to a goal, they can go, but not make a noise, because it's one of those situations that Steve Bruce, if he's still there, and I think Newcastle will be up in arms if we've got 4,500 supporters there anyway, and they've got nothing.
No question about that.
But I agree with Rob. I've looked at Burnley's running from now, Brighton's running, Palace is running, Southampton's, Brighton, Newcastle have got the worst run-in out of all that bottom 6, 7, 8 teams. And if we're fighting for that last position with them, it'll have been done and dusted by the time that they come down to us.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Guys, fantastic show. Giannis, fantastic job finishing up the show, my friend. That was great. Any final for the guys before we wrap this up, Giannis? I'll give you the final word on this.
Yeah, just no, fantastic show, and it has been an incredible season, and just the fact that we've got the Palace on Sunday, and I put on Facebook. It's to me, it's the battle between the young fox and the wily old fox, and when we played Palace
It's a
down
bit
at the
like me and
Cottage,
Rob.
being Rob. Yeah, but you got the white hair there, Ivor. You're not going to get away with that one. But when we played Palace, we lost 2-1. But it was, I think Harrison Reed scored in the last minute, but it wasn't that close. I mean, they kicked us off the park. They counter-attacked with 2 good goals. Riedewald and Zaha scored, and they were much the better side. But the evolution of this team from that particular game, I think it's been seismic. And the game against Burnley last week cannot be understated. It was, Burnley represents an attack on an assault on the senses, let's be honest. But that was a very, very, very tough game for us to get a point. I think in many ways that was as good a performance as we had at Everton, because Turf Moor is a graveyard for us. Burnley are a very physical, well-organised side. And even without Ben Mee, I thought they, the way they attacked back at us when we scored our opening goal, I thought was, it's testament to the way they play. So with the games we've got left, I'm confident that the way Scotty has us set up, that we're going to be fine. But I just don't want a repeat of the 2007-2008, that great escape. I was replaying Diamante Camara's 2 goals at City of Manchester, and Danny Murphy's penalty miss. Still replaying to see if he actually scored the rebound, But I think we're going to be okay. I think we're playing well, and if the players do their job, we'll hopefully do what Villa have done this year, which is, kick off to another level and keep us fingers crossed. But we'll be willing them thousands of miles away for sure.
Okay, great stuff. Great stuff. Thank you to everyone. First, Emilio, before we wrap this up, great show. Great show. This is your idea, so I want to give you full credit on this.
Yeah, just very entertaining. It's just good everyone having, just talking positive. We've all been very positive tonight. We've talked, there's lots to look forward to. I think I agree with Yanis. I think we will stay up this season. It won't be easy, but at the end of the day, there's enough games there, right? And we know what Fulham are like. It's never easy being a Fulham supporter, is it? So it's overall a lot of optimism. We've got to push on next season. Scott Parker's got a good future ahead of him, and it just needs all of us just to come on this show a little bit more often, show more positivity, and that will give the boost to all our fans globally. So thanks very much for coming on the show tonight, guys.
Absolutely. Gordon,
thank
Rob,
you, no problem. Nice to see you, Yanis.
So much.
Thanks for the questions.
Ivor,
Cheers, Yanis, Emilio, Russ, Rob.
Okay.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, a big thanks to you, Russ and Emilio. All the shows you do, week in, week out, and days in, days out. It's massive to all our supporters all around the world, So it keeps us all going with mental health and the longevity. I was only looking, at Facebook this morning. A good old Fulham friend of mine, Alan Druitt Senior. He's having a tough time at the moment, and he's, he lost his job last year and he's in retirement, and he's, just when Fulham have a win, it perks him up. So
absolutely.
Keep going, Alan. It's there's plenty of people out there to talk to, and last week was a great week for you.
It was, and and I'll just end it this way, and Emilio will attest to this because him and I talked last night. How Fulham has been an escape from us for what's going on with our daily lives right now, with everything, and we can do this together. And I think doing this show has been a benefit for us, and hopefully for a lot of people watching. And I want to thank everyone around the world that watches, listens to the show. It's actually given me a great deal. And thank you, everyone that's participated. It's funny because we're coming up this summer on 10 years of Cottage Talk, which is amazing. I've gained so much from it. And it's just amazing just think about it. But it's been fantastic for me. And it's just wonderful that we could do this with such great people. But, guys, we've gone way over, and I kept everyone way long. But I just want to wrap this up. For my very special guests, Gordon Davies, Rob Wilson, my co-host, Emilio Danell, and Yanis Yanis. I'm Russ Coleman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.